Again, I start with the same thing, that we are at the third annual general meeting of Trade4SD project, and this is a second interview with Ralph from University of Ghana. And the reason to do the second interview, because we actually had a meeting earlier this year in Brussels, where we suddenly met in over a dinner and then later over a drink. You then told the reason for you to be in Brussels was to attend the Cocoa conference, the World Cocoa Conference. Could you say a few words how often this conference is organized, how you got there, who invited you? Because you are basically a researcher, so why were you hanging around the conference?
Thank you. So I'm part of a research group that does some work on cocoa. And a few years ago, I was asked by the project, it's called the Cocoa for Future project. It is being run by CIRAD. CIRAD is it's a research institution in France. Mm-hmm. And so we had some of our colleagues, some of the CIRAD colleagues coming to Ghana to run a project, and they approached me to be a researcher on one of the topics that they were handling. So I wrote them a report which was on organizational innovations in the cocoa sector. And so by virtue of that, I attended the International Symposium for Cocoa Research in Montpellier in 2022. And in 2024, there was the World Cocoa Conference, and they asked if I would like to go. And that was the reason I was there. So the thing was to get a view of what was being discussed there, right? Talk about sustainability in Trade4SD, sustainability every other place that you go. But the theme of the conference, I think, was paying more for sustainable cocoa, mm-hmm. which also caught my attention. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we'll be talking about other things, so I'll wait for you to ask the question. But that is how I got there. And I think the World Cocoa Conference, this was the fifth one, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think it is every year, but yeah, this was the fifth one
but this was the first for you to attend,
yes,
I guess. Mm-hmm. And what was the most interesting, presentation or outcome or meeting or networking opportunity you had during this conference? Because again, when we met in Brussels, you said that there were the participants of the conference were very varied people. Like mm-hmm. you are a researcher, but there were also businesses there. So what was the most interesting discussion you had there? Or
I think I was intrigued by quite a number of things. Mm-hmm. Number one, talking about the true cost of cocoa, for example. Mm-hmm. True cost of cocoa, and talking about living income. And one may ask, what is living income, right? Because you and I, we don't ask ourselves those questions. What is a living income? But the idea of what a living income is, the inclusivity of gender dimensions in whatever it is that is happening in the cocoa sector was of interest. For example, the issue about paying more for sustainable cocoa itself, the theme, was very interesting to me. And at the end of the conference, I was asking, so did we come up with measures to ensure that we are paying more for sustainable cocoa? In the first instance, what is sustainable cocoa, and how much more are we willing to pay for that? So these were some of the things that were on my mind.
Your words triggered another question again, because when a farmer, and sorry if I ask naive questions, but all of my experience is based in Europe, basically. So I have never been in Ghana before, but if the farmers decide from the various options that, okay, we go extensification, we go to a new area which is forested, and then we utilize it as a cocoa farm, this means that they leave their previous farm, and is there an opportunity then to actually reforest that farm? So is it like, can we create a kind of circle that, okay, when the yield goes down in a place, then restoration of the former habitat could happen in the farm that was left behind?
Well, I've not seen that happen. because you would.
But can this happen?
Well, I mean, I think with education it can, but then people would always think about, for example, whatever is happening on the farm should have some other alternative benefits to them, right? So, for example, if they decide to grow trees, if they decide to grow a mango tree, right, they can harvest mangoes from it, right? If they decide to grow cashew, they can, but if they decide to grow, say, timber-related trees on it, then they cannot have any benefits from that until they are ready to cut down.
Decades, 4 decades, yeah.
But if they, what I have seen is people have, for example, multiple plots of cocoa farms. They may have one here, 2 there, 4 over there. There are others who also have like 8 in acres, like plantation type, right? And I've not heard of it could be, but I have not heard of somebody
thinking of loud. You haven't seen this yet. But what if we previously, or in another talk, we talked about the voluntary sustainability standards. What if a standard introduces this concept that you can get a premium price if you do reforestation in your previous farm? And we know that the timber you cannot harvest for several decades, but you get a premium price because you actually restored the previously degraded land. Do you think that this can happen? Could this work?
I think it depends. I mean, we may have to pilot it to see if it will work, because then you need to know their willingness to accept whatever premium it is that you want to give them to forfeit that land, right? And to use it to grow trees on that land and move to another place, right? We need to think about so many things. The opportunity costs will come in, etc., right? But I don't think it is impossible, but I think we need to pilot the idea to really see if it would work and how many people and what the willingness to accept of that premium would be. Then we can make an informed decision about they would actually move to another place. And it's also predicated on the fact that they have a better land that they are going to farm the cocoa. When you grow a cocoa seed, when the seedling is put in the soil, it will take time before it begins to bear fruit. So what is happening? How much is the premium, and how often is that premium paid to sustain the farmer until he or she begins to harvest on the new plot of land? So we may need to test a few things, check out the opportunity costs that are available to the opportunity costs and other opportunities that are available to the farmer in order to make that decision.
You also mentioned earlier that there is also, I don't know whether we can call it a tendency, but an observation that some of the farmers are actually giving their land to even more destructive practices like mining, for instance. Is this actually a big threat in Ghana? Is this happening on a large scale already?
On a large scale, I've not seen any measure to call it large scale, but I know it is happening. I've heard of it, right? At least I've seen a footage of a farmer who was saying that he was giving his land away for illegal mining because he wasn't really making money out of cocoa farming, and the amount of money that he was getting from the so-called illegal miners to use his farm as a mining site was higher than what he had received for, the over 2 or so decades that he's been growing cocoa, right? So rationally, they are giving out the land to get more money, but then there are opportunity costs associated with that decision. But I can also mention that for that particular farmer whose footage I watched, the regulator came on board and tried to educate him and to let him know the repercussions of the illegal mining, that it wasn't just going to affect